Welcome, everyone. This is Sharon with Self Care You podcast. I am the number one self caregiver in the world, and this podcast is the intersection of self care, advocacy, and compassion for self caregivers. So, welcome. And so, today, what we will talk about is for this episode is pretty much prioritizing you. It's like, what does this mean? Again, this is why the Self Care You podcast, the Self Care You brand is because on a regular, we do not prioritize ourselves. We're always doing so much for others until we are emptying out ourselves. And I've had previous episodes of where I talked about like my own revelations, when it comes to myself, because I've always thought, hey, I take care of myself and I try to make sure that I kept, shall I say, my surrounding just in a certain way. And when I say that, meaning not to allow certain things inside my window. When I say my window, meaning whether it's physically my home or my atmosphere within myself, but sometimes that may not always be. And so, what I will say is that anytime that happens, we're not prioritizing ourselves. And the other thing, too, when it really comes down to it, and if you've been looking at, hopefully you've been following me for a while in that, especially when it comes to Self Care U Nuggets, and previously it was known as um, conscious sharing moments, and then it went to conscious sharing moments, and now it's Self Care U Nuggets. And in that, I've been talking a lot about, we talk about going to the moon and back, but the main thing is go to the moon and back for yourself, to yourself, through yourself. Because the more that you prioritize yourself, this is where your life, your world, even your finances will elevate. Because one thing that I can say, when I look back at things in that, anytime there have been any difficulty that I've had in my life, somewhere, whether I know or not, there was a disconnection with myself. Sometimes it can happen. I do want to point out too, we're not always conscious. That's where that autopilot comes into play. We've heard of that. It's just pretty much you're doing the same thing day in and day out. Go to work, come back home, go to work, come back home, go to work, come back home. And even for those of you who have family, who have children, you end up doing the same thing as well in going to work, go back home. You do those routines can be beneficial, but the danger, shall I say, in having you routine in that is so repetitive till you're really not thinking until it's like a trance. Now, sometimes that can be good because it can prep you, let's say when it comes to exercise, when it comes to, brushing your teeth or everything can be healthy, not just in having fresh breath, but there's no thought, there's no intention. And anytime there's not any intention in the things that we do, it really becomes autopilot, and your being is not there. And you need you. You need you. So when you prioritize yourself, you're bringing yourself up to light. This is where your creativity can even come into play. Because again, when it's just the same old thing, there's really no creativity there. And so, in saying that, prioritize yourself. And prioritizing yourself isn't just about being happy. And if you listen to previous either Self Care You Nuggets or previous podcast episodes, you've heard what I've said about this happy thing. And I'm not saying not to be in joy, not to be even content, because being content sometimes can have a level of comfortability, and it's okay to be comfortable, but not to be set, if that makes sense. And so when you're prioritizing yourself, you're setting yourself up for greatness. And you're like, oh, I'm already great. Of course. So level up. And when I'm saying this to myself as well, because of the fact I've come to realize, even though I've had a goal, but my goal wasn't big enough. So now my goal is bigger than what it was before. And you're like, Sharon, what do you mean by that? So I can only say for myself in that I always knew I wanted to help people. Ever since I've been in high school, it's talking about all these things in the world. And I'm like, well, I don't see all of that, but here I go to help. There was this pushing, this yearn in order to help others, wherever that comes from. And I did that in my career, but then there came a point where I wanted more. So the only thing I'm going to say about that is if I would have taken the time to dream bigger, to want more, and there's nothing wrong with where you are, because I feel good and I'm content and I'm satisfied with the accomplishments that I've made with the different ways that I've helped others. But one thing that I will say in that, not that I didn't help myself and not that I didn't prioritize myself, but one thing I can say, when self-care, there have been different levels of self-care in my life. I'll put it like that. But when I took it away, not completely, but shall I say when I added, I'm not going to say took away, when I added other aspects, because I thought it was good. You know what I mean? So that's the thing when you prioritize yourself, in that you realize where you are not okay. You realize this. You realize when you're not okay. It's kind of like, when is it time for me to really sit with myself? When it's time for me to make a break? Because you had those jobs, you all have those jobs at some point in your life where it's just super busy, and it asks a lot of you. And do you tie in self-care moments? Do you tie in sitting in silence? Do you tie in, things that can energize you or relax you? And remember, in saying that, you can always go and purchase, make sure that that's the right one, the Rest, Rejuvenate, and Recover self-care apps. And these are tailor-made for busy leaders and professionals. And pretty much there are like 6 self-care apps that you can do throughout the day when you need to energize or you need to relax. Different things that you can do. And pretty much it's all, should I say, I'm saying all, but different aspects of it, whether it's tightening your muscles, whether it's music, whether it's breathing, whether it is movement. So it's different things that you can do throughout the day, whether you're at home or you're at work, so that you can boost your energy, or if you need to be in a relaxation state. It gives you clarity, and it also allows you to be where you need to be. And so, in saying that, what is it that you are doing so that you can prioritize yourself? Because anytime that you are not prioritizing yourself, the world is going to kidnap you. The world, or life, however you want to say it, you will be abducted, because it will not be you who's making the decisions. So that's another reason to prioritize yourself, so that you can be fully aware or at least fully aware where you are at that particular moment in time in your life. Because I can definitely tell you about a time when I've been abducted. Again, when you hear people say, "Oh, I lost myself," you've been abducted, you've been kidnapped. And again, it's not intentional. So, this is why it's so important to be intentional of where you are, where you stand with yourself. So, prioritize yourself so you can be completely active. And not only that, so that you can make the difference. If your difference is within your family, if your difference is within your community, if your difference is within the world, wherever you are, because you get to decide where your difference is going to be. But in the midst of all of that, no matter where you are, prioritize yourself, especially when it comes to your job. Because at the end of the day, the job is business. And once you get your own business, you will have a better understanding of that. And so prioritize, prioritize, prioritize. Prioritize yourself so that you can show up. You can be where you want to be. The other thing about prioritizing yourself in that, where I was going, is that it may not always be pleasant, meaning challenge yourself, do the hard stuff. Because if anything that I have come to realize, that I recognize, that I acknowledge, how much I thought that I had pretty much, avoided the bullet. But, and when I say that, it's people, places, and things are placed in your life so that you can level up, so that you can challenge yourself. Is it a test? Yes, it's a test so that you can use the knowledge, so you can use discernment, so that you can step up, so that, you know what? It's a test so that you can prioritize yourself. It's a test so that you can prioritize yourself. So, you want to be a millionaire? You got to prioritize yourself, your time, your energy, your currency, your money. Prioritize yourself. And no one says it's going to be easy. I mean, how in the world can we really think of easy when this, how we're going to make it easy? Why will you think it's easy? How much I would love for it to be easy. Because even if something falls in your lap, it still doesn't mean that it's easy. So, what are you doing to prioritize yourself? Did you pass the test? And believe me, the way that life is, you will get ample opportunities to pass, because life will give you the options. And that's the thing, you have free will. So you have free will whether or not you opt for them or not. And so when you procrastinate, sit down and do nothing, are you prioritizing yourself? So gain the energy to get what you need so that you can prioritize yourself. Live the life that you desire. Live the life that you deserve. Live the life that you want your children to have. Not just an easy life, but how they can go about and getting it, about how they can handle discomfort and differences, of how how you can handle that. And for those of you who have children, in that, children give you the opportunity to revisit those things that you may have never visited before. And so, take the time to honor yourself. Take the time to prioritize yourself. It's radical. We say that self-care is radical. Prioritizing yourself is a radical move. It shouldn't be, because it should be second nature. Yes, give, but give from the overflow. Because if not, you're not going to have the energy. Then you end up having some guilt. You're not going to be able to make others happy until you're complete. I'm not going to say completely, but until you're satisfied with yourself. So instead of trying to make someone else happy first, make yourself happy by prioritizing yourself. As I've heard, I can't remember who said it, but I was listening to something lately, as they say, sometimes the temporary discomfort can bring you lots of joy later. So it's only everything in life is temporary anyway. So any discomfort that you have, even the joys of life. So that's why we enjoy the moment. And so as we come to an end of this episode, make sure you continue to incorporate the 4 pillars of self-care as you prioritize yourself. So thank you for listening.